Good morning, friends. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Good morning, Fannie Faye Davis. How are you? Good morning, Yvette. Great to see you. Hello, Linda. Glad you're here. It's a beautiful day in Maine. It's a beautiful day here, too. It is absolutely gorgeous. What a gift, for sure. Morning, Deb Votrin. How are you? Glad you are here. How is everybody? Good morning, all. Good morning. I still haven't migrated from my winter cups, but they're they're the right size. They're the ones I like. So uh, we will suffer the winter theme just for the reminder of the glory of the goodness of these days. How about that? That there will be a day in which things get are chilly again. Good morning, Priscilla. Really hot, but I love it. Oh, very nice. Very nice. So it has changed. So things have turned. It's been very chaotic here with that, with weather. It's been. I came in yesterday morning, came into the church, and it was already starting to get warm, and it just had that feel of like one of those days that was kind of going to be a scorcher. So and then so we put the air on, I got the fan together and everything, and then went out by the afternoon, and it was freezing. It was cold. That the changes of of this season, this mid spring journey that we're on right now is just glorious. That we never, the old adage of New England weather. If you don't like the weather, just wait a minute. So good morning, Irene. How are you? I hope you're well. That I imagine that garden of yours must be glorious at this point, in full display. Yep. As my mother likes to say of her garden, when she has a lot of rhododendrons and a lot of azaleas and all that, when everything goes out, she says it's pretty splashy. It's I love it. I can think of a no higher compliment, even though she's giving it to her own garden. It's just a perfect descriptor. Uh, Imagine the accent. Just gotcha. So yeah. All right, friends. All right, so welcome everybody. You got me with that one, Linda. Uh, all right. Good morning, everybody. It is this day, another 11/11. Here we are on the 25th day of May. 25th day of May at 11/11, and I am glad that you are journeying with us. Uh, the the And one of the funny things about today is it is actually the anniversary of the release of the movie Star Wars and all of the incumbent thing that came from it. The 25th of May, 1977, 44 years ago, the Star Wars was released into the theaters. And if it wasn't today, it was shortly after today that I, as a little 9-year-old, 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 8-year-old, somewhere in that line, was dropped off at the movie theater and stood in line with my little amount of money and went to see the Star Wars for the first time, and I was blown away. And I wasn't alone, like so many other people in that, and that Star Wars became this massive and huge franchise and surprise. It is in fact, many people consider it the greatest surprise in movie making ever, uh, largely because of the fact that no one expected. In fact, most of the people they wanted to get to act in it, or a lot of the people that they were trying to cast in that movie, wouldn't do it because they thought it was going to be so awful and so campy and so kind of not well received that it would lower their standards. And so Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford ended up being in this movie largely as kind of the second choices to a lot of those the initial big stars that Lucas wanted to get to play his heroes. And the world was surprised. The world was surprised by a heroic story, and that a heroic story, well told, might transform the world, might change everything. In fact, that is the story of the gospel. A heroic story lived out in flesh and blood to its highest and most perfect good changed the world. Now, this seems like a surprise. Not just that Star Wars was a hit, but that this was the very fabric of creation is built on surprises. And that's what is in some ways all of the introduction of what I want to talk to you about this morning is this notion of being surprised. We think often in our world right now that most of the surprises that are laying wait for us are not surprises so much as they are ambushes. They are this aggressor force out there that is going to jump on us and afflict us and control us and hurt us and bind us and attack us. You know, you think about wandering into a political conversation and Marshall Dillon, this feels like an ambush. Like we're in this moment of feeling ambushed so often by the things of the world. But what I want to lift up is this reminder that actually the best things of our lives and the entire movement of God with us is all a surprise. It's all one long series of surprises. It's one long series of ambushes, but not ambushes in the horrible way that, somebody's going to get us, but this ambushes in the way in which God is going to reach into creation and lift us up. God is going to give us a heroic story to live out. I mean, think about the story of Star Wars and just the beginning of it. Here is this kid, Luke Skywalker, lost on Tatooine, wanting to go off and fight in the rebellion, and he comes home one day after wandering in the desert and meeting an old man to find his entire world quite literally destroyed. And he is kicked onto the heroic journey. He is kicked onto the great and wondrous path. We can feel sometimes like the destruction of our lives, the things that break down in our lives, the changing of things that comes even through the best of things, comes to us with the hand of God and the fingerprint of God all over it, with the movement of the Spirit embedded within it, right at the center of it. And that doesn't mean all the bad things that happen to us come from God, but it means that in the movement of our grand and historic and heroic journey, I want you to think about that. Your journey in this life, your journey, my journey, everyone's journey, but your journey in specific. Think about your journey. Yours is a heroic and historic journey. There has never been another you in all of history. There never will be. There has never been another that has faced the great trials you have faced, that have stared down the dragons that you have stared down, perhaps even been bitten and consumed by again. And yet the movement of the Spirit has swept in and surprised you once again by your being a part of this journey. C.S. Lewis titles his early stories about his coming to faith, his spiritual narrative, if you want, his spiritual biography that he writes about the early part of his life. And I encourage it to everybody. It's a small read, but it has some of the most beautiful and most honest, the thing I love most about C.S. Lewis, the great apologist from the middle of the last century, that what he brings is not just great intellect, lots of good thinkers, but he brings an honesty to his intellect that is, I think, in many ways beyond parallel. Maybe Chesterton, maybe a few others that manage it, but a heartfelt incarnation of great thought that comes into the world. And in Surprised by Joy, he maps out his journeys about the surprise. And this is what he says, he's surprised by joy. And again and again and again, you and I will be surprised by joy. We will be surprised by the movement of Spirit in the world. We will be surprised by the goodness of the world as it comes. And it doesn't mean that it's all just, Cheerios and unicorns. That it's all just this wondrous little kind of time of feasting. That's not at all the point. But it is that we are continually entering into this, and that he said it this way. This is a particular little passage that I always love it, but it's in a particular context that I wanted to share with you. Is that in reading Chesterton, and as in reading, this is from Surprised by Joy by Lewis. He says, in reading Chesterton, as in reading MacDonald, I did not know what I was letting myself in for. A young man who wishes to remain a sound atheist cannot be too careful with his reading. There are traps everywhere. Bibles laid open, millions of surprises, as Herbert says, fine nets and stratagems. God is, if I may say it, very unscrupulous. I love this notion that God is unscrupulous in his work to reveal himself to us. He is unscrupulous in his desire to be in relationship with us. He will wait at the cafe for us until we decide to stop for coffee and ambush us there and surprise us there. He will come to us and surprise us in moments that we think are only and ever completely punctuated with blackness, that we have again and again and again the ability to simply step onto the journey, to step onto the path, to engage in the heroic story, to live in what everybody thought was going to be this campy, stupid, shallow, vapid film called Star Wars that came out 44 years ago today. That would become one of the greatest film franchises ever, that would enchant and entrance not just one generation, but generations again and again and again. And why? Because it is the story of one hero surprised by what life brings him in the noble pursuit of the overcoming of evil in the world. Friends, God's grace, God's love, God's peace is a lot like, and our journey with it, and our journey with it is a lot like, I think, how Star Wars got looked at in those early days, before it was made, when they were trying to cast all the people, and everybody said, "Oh, this is dumb. This is stupid. This is it's such a trite story. No one is going to come see this. It's set in space. What do we know about space? Like it's got effects that are literally like a guy banging on a pipe. By the way, every time a blaster fires in the movie, it is literally a guy banging on a pipe. That's how they made that noise. That all of these different ways in which this film comes into being, being made, and the way that it entrances the human spirit and the human imagination about what it is to live a historic and heroic life. Well, it's just another pattern of God's unscrupulousness with us, as far as I'm concerned. That God cheats for our own good. That God will come to us anywhere we go looking for him. And that the story of Star Wars is this heroic story. And so why do we come to it again and again and again? Because, friends, we are built for heroic stories. And we are living one. You're living one in your life right now. There are dragons. There are stormtroopers. There are empires that would seek to destroy you. And there is the courage to stand before them. There is the camaraderie and friendship of fellowships bound in trials. And there is the wonder and the goodness of a universe that is conspiring for you. See, I think that's the best part about the whole Star Wars story. And I know I spent a lot of time talking about Star Wars today, but it is the anniversary. But I also think we need to talk about these new metaphors, even though this one's 44 years old. But I think I like it because it's close enough and yet further away, that we still know it. And the greatest part of the story is that what you really come out with in Star Wars is a universe that is conspiring for you. It is the great story of pronoia. That, paranoia, I haven't talked about this. I talked about this before, but I haven't talked about it in a long time. So I feel like it's worth bringing back around. Paranoia is this overwhelming feeling that the world is out to get you, and a worldview that comes, a paranoid worldview is a worldview that is constantly looking at the world as if it is out to get you. The Christian worldview, Jesus' worldview for us, right from the very first miracle at the wedding at Cana, where he says, there's not enough wine. Let's get some more wine. There's not enough to go around. There's abundance now. That the very story of creation that comes into being, the very story of the Spirit moving across the waters at the very beginning of creation, that brings more into being than was there before, that creates the space for us to be in relationship with God. The whole thing is about this universe, this God that loves us so much that he conspires for us in his unscrupulousness, that he surprises us with the love and the grace and the peace, and that what you see, and I think this is the, if you really think about the Star Wars trilogy, I don't care how maybe you've never seen them, it doesn't really matter, but I believe that the underlying arc of the whole thing, that no matter how dark it gets, no matter how big and bad Darth Vader is out there, there is this constant force, the force that they talk about, that is conspiring for the goodness of creation. There's this underlying fabric that is not, it's not a bunch of bags of protoplasm with an urge to procreate. It's not a design left to itself to work itself out, but this constant little effort that is moving the universe toward goodness, away from evil. That works in the gentle, that works in the subtle, that works in the inner life. I mean, that's the underlying thread of the entire film. And I think in many ways, even though there's this huge technological stuff over the top of it, I believe in many ways it's that resonates with the human spirit. It's that is why it's one of the single largest film franchises on the planet. It is that speaks to us of the reality that even if we can't articulate it, that we know. And our higher mind wants to go to paranoia all the time, that there's something's out to get us, somebody's done something bad. We're going to get that the surprises of our life are ambushes, not surprises of joy. But in all of it, I think whether it's Star Wars or the wedding at Cana where Jesus says, "Oh, you're out of wine? Here's some more." The great surprise of his first miracle. That there is a resurrection that is to come after 3 days in the grave, the great surprise. There is a Holy Spirit that is going to dwell with you and is going to work with you, the great surprise. There is a creation in which you are a part of, in which God has breathed into existence, the great surprise. All of it, friends, all of it. Whether we find it told in a movie franchise that started 44 years ago, we find it told in our Bibles, we find it lived in our lives, and that's, I guess, the encouragement of I want to today. Where are the surprises from God in your life these days? Where have you been just surprised, not by the paranoia, not by the things that are out to get you, but by the pronoia, the things that are working for you, the way that the world is conspiring for you, the way that God's grace and God's love, not in the thunderbolt, not in the earthquake, not in the fire even, but in the still small voice. Where, friends, have you seen and been surprised by joy? I want to invite you to. I want to end today with this little quote from. And so we're gonna go in a way different direction. You must be used to that by now. But this is from a book called The Cloud of Unknowing. And The Cloud of Unknowing is a really interesting book. It was written by an unknown, an anonymous English Christian mystic in the Middle Ages. So we can probably say it's about 1,000 years old-ish, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, somewhere around the year 1000. That there was a Christian in England praying, documenting their prayer and faith life, and they came along to discover the truths of these words. And I want to offer them to you this morning in our parting, that you might think about this surprise of joy in your own life, but to understand that the spiritual life, whether surprised by joy, like I was as an 8-year-old by the work of Lucas, and by this incredible epic tale that was being played out on a screen in a way that I'd never heard it played out or never seen it at work, or whether it's the epic tale of your own life and your own heroism and your own fighting of the dragons, that this is the journey that you have embarked on and are a part of, that goes back quite literally to the very beginning of time. So hear this words from an unknown Christian thousands of miles away, 1,000 years away from the cloud of unknowing. This is what you are to do. Lift your heart up to the Lord with a gentle stirring of love, desiring Him for His own sake and for His gifts. Center all your attention and desire on Him, and let this be the sole concern of your heart and mind. And so, diligently persevere until you feel joy in it. For in the beginning it is usual to feel nothing but a kind of darkness about your mind, or, as it were, a cloud of unknowing. Try as you might, this darkness and this cloud will remain between you and your God. You will feel frustrated, for your mind will be unable to grasp Him, and your heart will not return to it as often as you can, letting your spirit cry out to Him whom you love. For if, in this life, you hope to feel and see God as He is in Himself, it must be within this darkness and this cloud. But if you strive to fix your love on Him, forgetting all else, which is the work of contemplation I have urged you to begin, I am confident that God in His goodness will bring you to a deep experience of Himself. Enter the grand, historic, and heroic journey of your life. Don't let it simply wander by. Open yourselves to the surprise of creation, the surprise that might begin like an ambush, but will end up a surprise of joy. Endure and enlist the one who made you, as you enter the cloud of unknowing of every day and every being, and find in your lives those places where God's surprise is open to you. All right, friends, that's my hope for you today. I pray you are well. Hey, Robin, so glad you're here. You are such an encouragement to be here. Thank you. Hey, Amy, glad you are here. When I see strong people, I always wonder what mountain they climb to get to. Yes, we are climbers of the mountain. All right, enjoy this day, friends. I hope you will get out, and it's not too much of a scorcher, and you have a day filled with the surprise of the Spirit. Peace and grace to you all. We'll pick it up tomorrow with another 11:11.